Hi, it's your friend Phil, Project Management Trainer and Coach. Today we've got a student question about PMBOK Guide multi-use ITTOs. Things that make you go, when it comes to the PMBOK Guide. Things that make you scratch your head and say, PMI, what exactly are you trying to tell us? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to say here? Maybe you could have said this better. Let's take a look at the question from Daisy, one of our students studying for the PMP exam. Daisy says, some of the items inside this list of ITTOs are similar to one another. Why? Why can't it be grouped to one technique? For example, interview in information gathering techniques and data gathering and representation techniques has the same definition. Why separate them? Let's take a look at what Daisy is talking about. Information gathering techniques has these array of sub-tools: brainstorming, interview, root cause, and Delphi. And I've put together a few acronyms to help you, by the way, Daisy. BIRD. Remember the bird? The bird brought the information in the old Bible story to the man in the ark. Remember that? Well, BIRD helps us know that we're gathering information to check for risks, just like in the old days. Has the water subsided? That's how I would remember what goes under information gathering techniques. Diagramming techniques, CIS, is cause and effect influence diagrams, systems and process flowcharts. Data gathering and representation techniques, I put this together, IP, and quantitative risk analysis and modeling techniques, the acronym, I scrambled them around to give SEM, 7 basic quality tools. Unfortunately, there are no vowels here, so it's CCC, FHPS. Quality management and control tools, AAPPTIM. And lastly, main B for group creativity techniques. And when you take a look at this array, let me show you here what Daisy's talking about. Here's some of the frustrations of the students studying for this exam. So you take a look at this, and you see there's brainstorming here, and you see there's brainstorming here. These are different tools and techniques, by the way. Brainstorming here, brainstorming here. All right, I see if that's not bad enough. Interviewing here, and then interviewing here again. And it goes on, just stuff like that. It makes you ask, PMI, are you trying to punish us by scrambling these around, sprinkling these around, brainstorming here, interviewing here, interviewing there. Delphi here, Delphi there, multi-criteria here, multi-criteria also in HR, which doesn't show here, by the way. It just makes you ask the question, why? Affinity diagram, did I show you that one? Affinity here, affinity here. So how do you compartmentalize all of this information? It could frustrate you, but here's the good news. Don't let it frustrate you. What you need to do, as I showed you in the case of Bird, try and anchor it back to what is being done. Diagramming techniques and information gathering techniques are used to better understand risks that could impact the project. Why do we use Delphi? Because we don't want biases. Oh, that's why it's in there. Okay. Why do we use cause and effect? We use it here, but we also use it here in quality. I use cause and effect in risk to better understand what could cause the risk to happen. I use it here to better understand what could impact a quality objective. I want to understand the root cause. Okay, what about influence diagrams? Have you taken a look at that diagram in the PMBOK guide that's called an influence diagram? If you did, it would make sense because it's in line with the cause, risk, effect diagnosis that the PMI says you should carry out. Because when you look at a risk, you want to understand the cause and the effect of the risk. So there are 3 things. Influence diagrams will help you do that. What about system and process flowcharts? They help you better identify risks. So these 2 are from risk. Data gathering and representation techniques, you need to remember this cannot be qualitative. This is quantitative because we're talking about probability distributions here. So even though we've got interview in here, we've got probability distributions. So just remember, what exactly are we doing? What are the probability distributions? That's the frame of mind you need to be in as you go through all of this, asking yourself, okay, why do I need this? Why do I need this? What is this? What is the difference between interviewing here when I'm using it for this purpose and interviewing when I'm using it for something else, such as in information gathering techniques? If you understand these sub techniques really well, it will help. So the answer is we put these in groups in the PMBOK guide to better help the flow. Can you imagine if we had, like in this case, in 6 and 5, if we had 7 additional tools and techniques listed under plan quality management? Can you imagine how long that list would be? So I guess as far as the presentation goes of the information in the PMBOK guide, putting them into these groups helps to shorten the long lists of information in the tools and techniques column. Also, putting them together because they can be used as a set, that also helps. One of the things I want to call your attention to in this, for example, information gathering techniques or diagramming techniques, PMI have a language they typically use. Information gathering techniques could include, diagramming techniques could include, they would say could include. In some instances, PMI says could include, but is not limited to. So they're trying to tell you, hey, this isn't all. There could be a longer list. Hey, you know what? On the exam, I wouldn't be surprised if there are things that are not inside the immediate list that could be part of the options in a related question. So don't let this bother you, is my real message here. My real message is understand what each of these does, why I use it in one place, how I use it in one place, and how I use it in another. Does it change in how I use it? Maybe the answer is no. But the reason why I'm using it could be different whenever I see them. I would also, if you have enough time, go through these acronyms or these letter arrays like CCC, FHPS, and look at that and say, do I remember what is in this array? Or look at APTIM, or you can make it PAPATIM, depending on what you want, and say, do I remember what PAPATIM is all about? Or MAINB, or BIRD, these funny acronyms and letter arrays. It will amaze you how many people will find this useful. Maybe not for you, but I would say don't sweat the small stuff. And this is mind-boggling, but it's small stuff compared to when you see them on the exam. Let me tell you a little bit about this exam. When you get into the exam, you will forget that you are breathing in air. Just be honest. You tend to forget what is happening inside your body and in your surroundings on this exam. Trust me, I've been through it 6 times. Been through these exams, and you just forget. You forget that you haven't had lunch, for example. I remember my previous exam, my last exam, most current exam for the PMI-ACP. I remember going into this cafe trying to get something to eat before I started, and it was outside of where I live, which is Arizona. So I was all the way in Virginia taking an exam in a strange place I'd never been before. I got there a little bit later than I would have liked. I got there earlier than the start time, but I ended up waiting for food. And they dilly-dallied a little bit, unfortunately, and I wasn't able to get food. You know what? When I started my exam, I forgot immediately that I was hungry. I forgot. I know not everyone will forget they're hungry, but I did by the time I saw those questions. And the questions just, trust me, this is small stuff. What you really need to know is what these are. Do I know everything in BIRD, SIS, IP, SEM, CCC, FHPS, PAPATIM or APTIM, and MAINB? Do I know what those are? If the answer is yes, yes, Phil, I know what those are. I can define them maybe even better than the PMBOK guide can. Maybe you've been to asq.org, as I recommend many students should, for example, to better understand these basic quality tools. If you do that, it would really help you better understand each of these sub techniques or sub tools. And when you get into the exam, you'll be laughing all the way to the score bank. Thank you for your question, Daisy, and thanks everyone else for your audience. And I wish you all the best if you want to take a solid PMP exam course. Don't forget, go to pmsucceed.com. Also visit Praizion.com if you're looking for study aids to support you, like audio and video as you travel and commute, like many of us do. And I'm sure those will offer tremendous value to your prep. All the best and speak to you soon.